I have a question for you. Am I racist? So in 24, while we have one Republican posting online calling himself a black Nazi, and then we have other gaslighters who pretend like, oh, we don't know if he actually posted it, ignoring that he's basically said those kinds of words publicly. Like the words that we know that he's actually said, the sentiment matches the black Nazi. The fact that he hasn't called himself a black Nazi in the open is irrelevant. I mean, it matches his rhetoric. Even if we didn't find out that he posted this on the porn sites, it really wouldn't change much. The stuff on porn sites is just further confirmation of what we already know. But while that's happening, right, and while Representative Clay Higgins, a guy who supposedly endorsed David Duke, now there are obviously disputes about that statement that he endorsed David Duke. But just like the other individual, he has a series of actions and words that he's spoken, like this, for example, which matches the kind of guy that would endorse David Duke. He says, LOL, these Haitians are wild. Eating pets, voodoo, nastiest country in the Western Hemisphere, cults, slapstick gangsters, but damned if they don't feel all sophisticated now, filing charges against our president and VP. All these thugs better get their mind right and their asses out of our country before January 20th. Just because I know certain people, even reading that, they're gonna explain it away. For example, and they're gonna think it's so clever. Let's just show the simpleton thought process. Let's show that you're not a genius. I already know what you're going to say, right? They're gonna say, what is so racist about speaking the truth? Look at what's happening in Haiti right now. Look at all the rampant crime, right? Look at everything that's happening there. And they do voodoo. That rhymes. Pointing out some issues that are happening in a country is not the same thing as talking about the people of that country in that way. These Haitians, right? There's no distinction between the gangsters, right? He's just referring to them, generally speaking. He's saying Haitians. Now, if you want to be dishonest, you can pretend and that's not what he means and blah. And look, he does technically say gangsters. And you can play all these types of games. But again, this is not a guy who has been a normal guy who has shown himself to be, you know, compassionate for others and whatever. This is a guy who this statement is not surprising that he said it, right? So to pretend like we're gonna give this the most charitable. So a very uncharitable person says something uncharitable, but we're gonna give him a lot of charity. Pretend like he doesn't mean exactly what we all know he means. But let's be serious here. There's a lot of crazy things happening in America, right? We have areas of high crime, we have gangs, we have rapes, we have sex slavery going on. We got all kind of things going on in this country, right? So would it be okay for someone to describe America in this way? And actually, this is accurate. I mean, literally, the lady that was eating cats was an American, right? So these Americans are wild. Eating pets, true. Voodoo, true. Nastiest country in the Western Hemisphere, well, subject to your personal opinion on that one. I think many Americans would agree with that. However, right, there's certain parts of America that I'm sure, you know, with crap on the sidewalk, you know, so some people, I mean, literal feces on the sidewalk. So some people living there might say that this is the nastiest country in the Western Hemisphere. But anyway, cults, true, 100% true. We got cults here. Any cults? Slapstick gangsters, absolutely, right? But damned if they don't feel sophisticated now, filing charges against our president and VP. True. All these thugs better get their mind right and their asses out of our country before time. So imagine Americans are in some other country and someone says this. So while these things are happening, Matt Walsh is making millions trolling DEI folks with a movie called Am I Racist? Now, the people he's trolling probably should be trolled and called out, but they should be called out by people on the left who actually take racism seriously, right? The people who take racism seriously and who are not unhinged, right, should call out the unhinged people who are just, it's like an industry for them, right? It's a grift for them, right? The serious people on the left who care about racism should call out the race grifters. But Matt Walsh from Daily Wire? No. People who, you know, support the very thing that those grifters are exploiting, right? They wouldn't be as much to exploit if not for people like Matt Walsh, right? I go on literal white supremacy forums and I see so many videos posted from Matt Walsh. Why? I think the answer to that question explains my very point. The white supremacist groups that I monitor have stated that under Trump, their numbers surged. So white supremacy literally surged under a Trump presidency, right? Now, I know the left doesn't like to talk about black supremacy groups, but they do exist. I don't see that their numbers are surging under Joe Biden, but we do know that white supremacist groups surged under Donald Trump. Not a liberal media talking point. Again, literally monitor white supremacist groups so I can hear it direct from the source. And this is what they said. And further proof that I'm getting down to the truth is that they do not claim Donald Trump. They actually have issues with him, with his connections with Jews, right? White supremacists are very concerned about Jews. To be honest, when I go through their forums, I mean, they definitely say things about brown-skinned people, but they seemed overly preoccupied with Jews, in contrast to what you hear in the media. That's really one of their biggest focuses. Again, they absolutely have issues with other groups as well, in particular brown-skinned people like myself, but they usually talk about Jews, which is interesting because I know there's people who are listening to this video right now who still are shaking their heads and they're just kind of like, oh, you know, you're just blowing it out of proportion or whatever. I want you to consider this reality. Imagine if that tweet replaced Haitians with Jews. What would be the response, do you think? Because I can pretty accurately predict that this is not going to be a major scandal. They might get a little coverage from liberal media, but it's not going to be something insane. Now, if that statement was about Jews, I don't think this guy would be in office much longer, right? And even if he stays in office, because maybe they don't have a way to get him out of office, he's going to get censured. I mean, there's going to be so much repercussions, and this is going to be a story in the media for quite a while. So, to the question, am I racist? Why is it that there are so many people in this country who can easily hand wave away that kind of statement about Haitians, but if it was made about Jews, they would have a big problem with it? What is the difference? What do you think? I mean, there's a lot of people who have big problems with what's happening in Israel right now. A lot of problems with what Israel is doing right now. So they could make similarly harsh comments about Jews as a result. But why would that result in such rage? But you say the same thing about Haitians, and it's kind of, well, you know, blah, blah. So to answer the question, am I racist? Ponder that reality. Once you come to some kind of conclusion on that, maybe you can understand the answer to the other question. And here's another thing. The tweet is not going to be covered at all, probably in right-wing media. Why? Now, they've been morphing into getting even more disgusting than they already were before. So they tend now to double down. Like they seem like they feel like they're invincible. So in the past, something like this, I'd be guaranteed they wouldn't touch it. But now, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of the worst try to mention it and try to whitewash it or something like that. But odds are they're not going to talk about it, right? What they will talk about is people grifting on racism. They love to talk about that. If there's a story where they say something is racist and it might actually not be, love to talk about that. If racism is actually happening, silence. Why would that be the case? Why would one not be interested in talking about actual racism, but be very excited to talk about racial grifters and things that are made to be about race but are not about race? And what's the impact of the consumers of this type of content? Every time you hear about racism, it's in a context of a grifter or a fake story that's actually not about race. What would that cause in your mind? Would not many people start to believe racism is not even something worth being taken seriously? Because every time it comes up, it's a grift or it's fake, right? So wouldn't you start to feel like racism, we solved it? So therefore, when actual serious people try to address racial issues, you might be leaning towards not taking them seriously and going after them and maybe calling them racist. Think about it. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.